Hi, my name is Ellie Peltonen.
I'm Andrew Ferry.
And I'm Pete McMahon.
Today we'll be presenting our feasibility study on expanding Major League Baseball to Mexico City, Mexico, and whether or not it would be financially feasible to build an MLB Stadium there.
This presentation is going to take you through our analysis of the market, which includes an overview of municipalities' demographic and psychographic data of the surrounding area and venue data.
We will then present possible options of financing and our key sources of revenue. We will also discuss the growth rates of our income and expenses and the economic and fiscal impact of the project.
Alongside our research data, we will present our pro forma financials, which includes our consolidated balance sheet, our consolidated statement of incomes, and our cash 2017 year end. Afterwards, we go into our statement of cash flows, our depreciation schedule, our bond amortization schedule, and our bond escrow. We will then conclude the presentation by giving any recommendations that we may have and explaining whether or not this project is feasible. This feasibility project is about whether or not it would be realistic to build a new stadium for a Major League Baseball expansion team in Mexico City, Mexico. We believe that Mexico City would be a great place for the MLB to have a team and build a new stadium due to the market that it would open up for the MLB. The proposed location for the stadium is Calle Indiana 255, Mexico City, Mexico, in the district of Benito Juarez. The projected number of seats in the stadium is 30,000. If Major League Baseball were to choose to expand to Mexico, we predict that the team would be in the AL West division. Our analysis of this project illustrates whether or not this would be a good decision financially. After analyzing the market that we're in, as well as researching similar stadiums in the MLB, we estimated that the cost of building this stadium would be around $250 million. The existence of this stadium could have a huge impact on the development of the area, as well as the entire Mexican and American economy for multiple different reasons, which we explore further in this project. Before we begin our analysis, it is important to note that we discuss financials in US dollars instead of the Mexican peso. The current exchange rate is $1 equates to 18.97 Mexican peso.
Involved municipalities for the project include the United Mexican States, the City of Mexico, and Benito Juarez. The planned site for the stadium is located at Calle Indiana 255, Mexico City, Mexico. Mexico is a federal republic located in North America, bordered by the United States to the north and Guatemala and Belize to the south. It has a population of around 120 million people, and the most spoken language is Spanish. It has a domestic product of 2.4 trillion US dollars, and the sales or added value tax in Mexico is 16%, and federal sales tax revenue totals around 700 billion Mexican pesos, or around 3.5 billion US dollars. The City of Mexico, or Mexico City, is the capital and largest city of Mexico. The capital entity enjoys what is close to federal autonomy. It has a population of 21.3 million in the greater Mexico City area and around 9 million in the city center. The GDP of Mexico City is around 411 billion US dollars, and other sports clubs in Mexico City include 3 Liga MX teams, Club America, Cruz Azul, and UNAM, and a minor league baseball team in the AAA league there, the Diablos Rojos del Mexico. Benito Juarez is one of the 16 delegations that Mexico City is divided into. It has a population of around 385,000, but population can grow up to 2 million during the daytime for people coming in for work or leisure. The delegation makes up 6.2% of Mexico City's GDP, and it has the highest socioeconomic index in the country and is populated by mostly upper and middle class residents.
When thinking about the typical consumer in Mexico, it is easy to stereotype, especially when it comes to sports. Mexico's most popular sport is widely known to be soccer, and although baseball comes third as the most popular sport in the country, Major League Baseball has had fewer Mexican stars compared to the rest of Latin America. However, it's not all bad news. Mexicans tend to feel a lot of national pride surrounding their traditions, and traveling to watch sports is a large one. Mexico City is the largest metropolitan area in the Western Hemisphere, which would open up a huge market that the United States professional sports world is not fully immersed in yet. It would also offer the opportunity for the United States to improve the relationships with Mexican leagues, as well as increase the flow of Mexican players in the major leagues. The population of Mexico as of July 2017 is 124,574,795. More specifically, the population of Greater Mexico City as of the same date is 21.3 million. The average age of a Major League Baseball fan is 57 years, according to MarketWatch, and the most populated age group in Mexico is 25 to 55 years old, which is 41% of the population. The urban population of Mexico is 79.8% of the total population of the whole country as of 2017. Mexico's population is made up of 51% women, 49% men, and the average household income for a family is $843 per month. According to the OECD Better Life Index, nearly 60% of people aged 15 to 64 in Mexico have a paid job. However, the net adjusted disposable income per capita is $12,806 per year. More specifically, the same source says that 78% of Mexico are in paid work, compared with 44% of women. Income inequality is an issue plaguing the Mexican economy, as the top 1% of the population controls 50% of the country's wealth. The league reported through ESPN that their total paid attendance in 2016 was 73,159,044, which is an average of 30,059 per game over 2,425 dates. Since a stadium in Mexico City would be the smallest in the MLB, right behind the Tampa Bay Rays, we would expect our average attendance to be around the same number as Tampa's franchise, which was a home game total of 1,286,163 in the 2016 season, which averaged out to 15,878 over 81 games. However, in Mexico City, average per game attendance might result to a smaller number at our stadium due to having to rely almost solely on the wealthy people of Mexico City, which is an income greater than $100,000 per year, to be the fans attending and affording the games. Considering that Mexico's wealth is very unevenly distributed, the highest 10% receive 42.8% of the country's wealth. These are the Mexican residents that an MLB team there would be targeting. Benito Juarez, the neighborhood that we are building our stadium in, has the highest socioeconomic index in the country as well as the highest standard of living in the country.
Sources of revenue for the stadium would come from a variety of things, including, but not limited to, concessions, ticket sales, in-game promotions, sponsorship and naming rights, broadcasting and TV media rights, licensing and merchandise, MLB revenue sharing, and the MLB Central Fund and royalties. The fan cost index of attending an MLB game for a family of four in 2012 was $207.68, which includes the cost of tickets, alcohol, soft drinks, and entrees. When considering revenue from ticket costs, it's important to remember that a lot of this revenue comes from season ticket holders, package games, and etc. Due to stadium construction, we will not have any revenue in the first 2 years resulting from ticket sales or concessions. In 2016, the MLB league and team sponsorship revenue totaled $831.7 million. The MLB's national television deal is set through 2021 with Fox, TBS, and ESPN. These media rights contracts delivered $12.4 billion altogether. These television and broadcasting deals spreading into Mexico would provide a great opportunity for losses from ticket sales, concessions, merchandise, etc. to be made up via these deals.
Next, we will be discussing the growth rates of income and expenses. In terms of taxes, the property tax is 0.86% in Mexico. The corporate income tax in Mexico is approximately 30%. However, we do believe the Mexican government will grant us a tax abatement on these expenses because we will be the only MLB stadium in the country. Other expenses include land. The current stadium will be demolished by the owners, the Casio family, and they're selling it to us for about $4 million. Material expenses, we've estimated that the stadium should cost about $250 million, less the expense of labor. And labor, the cost will be significantly smaller than most stadiums in the MLB because it's smaller. The average manufacturing wage per hour in the U.S. is $21 versus $2 in Mexico. And after taking a look at some of the bigger stadiums, like Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, we researched that the cost of their stadium was $1.6 billion, and labor accounted for 0.5% of that overall cost, which was about $8 million. So taking this into account, we determined that the cost of our stadium would be, since it's about $250 million, labor would cost about $750,000. Moving on to economic and fiscal impacts of our stadium. The new stadium will be making a large impact on the surrounding area, as well as the city as a whole. The Benito Juarez area of Mexico City is full of restaurants and tourist attractions. Traffic is slow in the borough, so residents and visitors are encouraged to use other modes of transportation. The borough boasts 14 metro stations and 44 bus stations, making it increasingly convenient to travel to and from the stadium or the surrounding area. It also plans to, the borough also plans to create more bike routes. Without parking, game attendees will not be able to tailgate. They'll not be bringing their own food or cooking prior to the game like you would at an NFL stadium. So patrons are more likely to spend money in the surrounding restaurants and shops, which is great for the community. They'll also be putting more money into the transportation system as they'll continue to use more public transportation to get to the games. The borough of Benito Juarez is one of the wealthiest and most educated in the country, so residents have the expendable income to come to games as well as pay higher taxes to build the stadium. Most offices are located in the area as well, so corporate suite buying will be much easier. The borough is trying to expand in tourism even further, so more hotels are starting to be built in the area. The MLB season lasts for about 6 months, with each team playing roughly 162 games. So surrounding businesses will definitely benefit from the constant activity throughout the season.
Now I'll present our pro forma financials for 5 years, starting with the consolidated statement of incomes. The team's revenues include home game ticket sales, concessions, sponsorship and advertising, local radio and television revenue, MLB sharing plan revenue, MLB Central Fund. Royalties from MLB properties are $6 million a year, stadium naming rights deal with Modelo, and suite sales. The largest source of revenue for the team in years 1 and 2 is revenue sharing, but ticket sales quickly catches up in year 3. In the first 2 years, the team will have no revenue from ticket revenue, concessions, or TV and radio because the stadium will still be under construction with an opening season of 2019. Total revenues in year 1 total $79 million. The team's expenses are made up of major league salaries, baseball ops, sales and marketing, stadium ops, depreciation expense, scouting and operations for minor league baseball teams, and general team expenses. Salaries are the largest team expense, making up about a third. In year 1, the team avoids paying for stadium operations, salaries, and baseball operations as the team has yet to form, but in year 2, the only expense not paid is stadium operations. Expenses in year 1 total $59 million. Our bond interest expense comes to $6.25 million, and because of tax abatements from the Mexican government, the team avoids paying corporate income tax in the first 5 years. Net income in the first year is $13.1 million, but falls to negative $56 million in year 2, before going up to negative $12.7 million in year 3. Year 4 and 5 show no more promise than the others, with negative 12.83 and negative 12.89 as net losses, respectively.
Now we will be looking at our balance sheet. The statement examines both current and long-term assets and liabilities, as well as the owner's equity. Our current assets include cash, accounts receivable, inventory, and bond escrow, which accumulates from year to year. It is important to note that accounts receivable and inventory increases 5% each year. Our long-term assets include land, property and equipment, which includes stadium and team equipment as well as the stadium itself, accumulated depreciation, player contracts, franchise fee, and accumulated escrow. Total assets add up to about $378 million for the first year of the study. Total assets decrease each year in part because of the accumulation of escrow and depreciation. Moving on down to our liabilities. Our current liabilities include accounts payable, which increases 5% per year, and our long-term liabilities include our long-term debt, which is our 10-year bond. For owner's equity, we have about $100 million worth of private investors, $10 million as a receivable from the MLB Central Fund, and retained earnings from the accumulation of net income from year to year. Our retained earnings decrease each year because of our increasing net loss. This will come back later when we discuss the project's feasibility. Total liabilities and equity equal about $378 million.
As you can see, our building and equipment will depreciate over time. Our stadium will depreciate over its useful life of 30 years, and our equipment will depreciate over a useful life of 5 years. Our accumulated depreciation will increase over the next 5 years to a total of $55,666,667. In order to successfully finance our project, we will be taking 40% of our MLB revenue sharing income as well as a $6,250,000 interest expense to cover the cost of paying back the $250 million bond. Our operating activities will increase or decrease based on our current assets and current liabilities. Since our long-term assets and bond escrow are not changing from year to year, we will have no change in cash in terms of our total investing section. Our private investors and capital stays at $100 million each year, as well as our receivable from the MLB Central Fund staying at $10 million over the 5 years. So there is no change in financing activities. Unfortunately, we will have an increasing net loss for 2018 through 2021, which will cause our ending cash balance to decrease over the 5 years to a final balance of $9,327,074, which is significantly lower than our ending cash balance of $59,015,758 in 2017. Major League Baseball has always made increasing the viewership and access to the game of baseball one of its primary goals. Major League Baseball is proud of its culturally diverse group of fans and players, especially those from Latin America and the Caribbean. By creating a new team in Mexico City, the MLB can reach out to an already sizable baseball following in Mexico, as well as capture an entirely new audience of baseball fans. While the league is successful in providing fans in the United States and parts of Canada local teams to support, it is critical to place the team elsewhere internationally to increase professional baseball's audience. However, upon careful financial budgeting and forecasting through the year 2021, our group has determined that the project is not feasible for a baseball franchise at the moment.
With the exception of year one of the project, each year after shows an increasing net loss. With a net loss, while a net loss may not entirely be the reason the project is not feasible, it is certainly the determining factor. A net loss in the first few years of operation may be expected because of the initial stadium costs and the little to no revenue being generated, but the team could not sustain this for very long. A closer examination of the income statement shows all the increasing costs of expenses like salaries, stadium operations, and administration really begins to add up from year to year, and these costs offset the projected increase in revenues.
Although the stadium is in a higher income neighborhood, the threats of its location are evident. The Mexico City is still struggling with a poverty rate of around 40%, making it imperative that a higher income residents, especially in the Benito Juarez municipality, attend games regularly. The bullfighting ring directly across the street could draw business from the team, and there's no parking for patrons. These factors play a large role when it comes to attendance and ease with which sponsorships could be acquired.
After conducting this feasibility study, the conclusion has been made that now is not the right time to bring a Major League Baseball team to Mexico City. The necessary income is simply not present for a team to sustain itself for very long in its current situation. Without a considerable increase in funding from the MLB or additional private investors, the organization simply could not afford to operate. Going forward, in order to construct a new stadium that supports a professional baseball organization, other uses for the stadium during the off-season would need to be strongly considered. Perhaps the venue could form a partnership with a promoter like Live Nation or AEG Presents in order to program more events in the stadium, lightening the load on a new MLB team. In the future, if the right things align, the MLB might be able to successfully operate a team in Mexico City.